Welcome to Ignite Your Confidence for women in leadership who want to speak up and stand out. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Here you'll get all of the tips and tools that you need to stand out with unshakable confidence. Let's dive into today's episode. My guest, Kimber, is here and we go way back. So without me getting into a lot of history, Kimber, let's hear about you because we want to put the spotlight on you.
Well, thank you, Karen. It's so good to be with you.
Thanks.
I am a clinical psychologist licensed in the state of California. I consider myself a trauma healer. I'm kind of known as the regulator of the nervous system. I have training in somatic experiencing, which is Dr. Peter Levine's modality, and I'm a recent podcaster.
Yes, you are.
Yes, as of March 16th of I Thought I Was Over This. And so that has been super fun. Kind of non-professional. I'm a mom of two teens, though one is 19 and launched, one's 8th grader. And I have been married for 25 years almost. I know.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And I have the pleasure of working with my husband once a month. We co-lead a leadership executive team. So
I
that's
love
a little
it.
bit about me.
Love it. Thanks, Kimber.
You're
Well, you're
welcome.
doing, first of all, I cannot continue the conversation without acknowledging the brilliant name of your podcast. Can we start there? Why did you name it that? And what is your goal in serving the world through that podcast?
Ah, thank you. Well, the name came about really after about 6 months of thinking about names. I started thinking about a podcast maybe 3 years ago. 6 months, well, July actually of last year, I entered into this accelerator class and thought, I'm going to work on this. However, as a side note, I was finishing a manuscript.
Oh,
And at that time, right, that manuscript, I was at the end. So it was not fun. I was ready to put that to rest. And so as rewards, I could work on my podcast. So I just started thinking about themes, like what am I holding with my clients? And it just came to me one day with my business coach. She's like, "What is a common thread with all these things that you have going?" And I thought I was over this. That's the major complaint. And I'm like, that's it. So it kind
that,
of felt like it just dropped, but I had been marinating in what should be the name for a while.
yeah. I think it's brilliant and it's very attractive. Like it's very magnetic. Like, oh, I want to hear more about this. So I think
Thank you.
it's fantastic.
Well, in my call, I feel like the calling in this is we all have an internal judge. We
Mhm.
all have someone inside of us that's protecting us, that's like, be small. Don't get out of the familiar. Stay in your box. And I think that I thought I was over this as an invitation to welcome some of our old patterns because sometimes it means we're getting out of the box.
Mm.
And so it's showing up in a new way because we have this new stress and we go back to old coping strategies. And so it's kind of an invitation to show up in a new way and expect those old patterns, people inside of you to show up.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love the word invitation. That's
Mm.
so great. And it's not something we usually think of like, let's invite this in. No, I don't know that I really want to invite that in. Thank you very much.
Yes, so
So,
true.
well, I think it's fantastic what you're doing, and you're so incredibly talented. And I have been fortunate to be a part of some of the experiences that you've created in groups and individual on some level too. I
Thank
want to
you,
come
Karen.
back to, you're welcome. I want to come back to something that we talked about outside of this conversation is around your desire for people to take their seat at the table.
Yes. You
And that's a
know,
huge passion for me too. And so I want to hear what you have to say about that.
yeah. As you invited me to think about confidence, I feel like the biggest thing for me as I have become more confident is that I can listen more. I don't have to be big in the room. I
Ah,
don't have to be an expert. And as a result, I have noticed how sometimes I didn't give everyone a seat at the table because of my own insecurity. I needed to take up more space than
hmm,
those who might have a shyer personality or not be quick to share. And so as I've grown, I have really realized that listening is such a gift. And
hmm.
it's so, people's stories are so beautiful. And I'm at a loss when I don't invite everyone at the table. I miss out.
Wow.
Mm,
That's so beautiful. And it's so to me that is such an indicative or what do you call it? The confidence piece of that. It's so
yes.
true because I think that there's that level of insecurity when we feel like we need to be the smartest person in the room or we have to keep commenting when it's like, oh, see me. I do think it, and it kind of stems from insecurity. And
Yes.
sometimes it comes across as arrogance, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's such a good reminder of the balance because we've got to, like, the work that I do is with women and the encouragement to make sure that we are speaking up and we are using our voice. But then there's
Yes.
also that balance where you've got to listen and ask the questions and be curious.
Yes.
So it really is fascinating.
Absolutely. And for myself and my own self awareness journey, what I know is when I go into a situation that I'm not familiar, I'm just meeting new people, my default is to show up big and to show up. And that's my default. And it's like I need to create space for other people because that's just like you said, stemming from insecurity. And for some, they ask more questions and are hidden from that. So we all have this default when we're a little anxious about our new environment.
Yes, that's such a good point of how we each have the ways that we hide or that we're comfortable. And in fact, for just, I don't know if you know this, Kimber, but for anybody listening, it's April 7th, 2022. Tomorrow, my first book is launching and I'm contributing when I'm a contributing author. Let's be clear here. It's not my own
Well,
coming,
hello.
but
Hello.
my first, and it's called Invisible No More. Stepping into the spotlight.
Wow.
There are 17 of us contributing authors, and we're all sharing our story of how we stepped into the spotlight. And I do think that it's
Fantastic.
so cool to think about. I mean, it was really cool for me to reflect on my story as well, and just inviting people in to go, what are the ways that you might be hiding? And
Yes.
I was even in a yoga class a couple days ago and laying down flat on the floor on my stomach where everybody's laying down and it's weird if you when you're lay down and you're supposed to put your head to one side and usually the instructor says like everybody look
Yes.
to the right,
Yes.
but this woman said turn your head any way you want and catch the eye of your neighbor perhaps. And it
Wow.
even gives me goosebumps now because then she said something that was very fascinating. She just said it's good sometimes to reflect. Is it harder to be seen or is it harder to see people?
Wow.
And I kind of went, oh my gosh, mind blowing. I had to post about that, of course.
Yes, yes.
And I think it's a really interesting question for people to consider. Like what is harder? For me,
Yes.
certainly it's being seen. Absolutely 100%.
Yeah.
What about you? Or what have you seen even in your clients?
Yeah, well, I think we have a default that we go to, one is we either feel very comfortable taking up space, but we have a hard time going in the background maybe because we didn't have a voice before and now we want to make sure that we're showing up big. But I would say in those situations, it's really the other side of the trauma coin. When you hide, you can go the opposite way and not give other people a chance to be seen. And it's not, you're not connecting in this very rich way. You're only just trying to react against not being seen.
Mm,
So,
that's really powerful. What you just said about I feel like there's a few nuggets in there of what you just said, but the part about the connection and how many people are going around living in the world not connecting
yes.
at a deep level that we're all humanly capable of, and that
Mm.
feels so good when we do.
Yes. It's
It's
so
amazing.
true. I
Yeah.
think even walking through the grocery store, there is something about recognizing I'm a human who can impact this environment by looking people in the eyes and just saying a friendly hello. Is that going to change their life? No, but in that moment, there is, you're not alone. I see you in this moment, picking out the lettuce. I see you.
That's
And I
so
think it's
beautiful.
so powerful.
Yeah, it's such a good example, isn't it? And for some people, it might even change their life or certainly impact their day because we're not used to people doing that.
Yes.
Remember Crocodile Dundee? Do you remember that
Yes.
movie?
Yes.
Yeah, good day, good day. Like he's walking through the streets of New York saying good day to everybody, and they're all looking at him like he's nuts, but he just seemed happier than a clam. And
Totally. And I grew up in a small town where, I mean, you said hello to everyone. And I've lived in LA for lots of years, since 1990. And it's very different. So there is a way that it can feel vulnerable to say hello, but I'm just owning. I think this is me getting into my confidence that I don't care how you respond to me. I could make you uncomfortable by saying hello, and I want to respect that. I
mm,
want to respect that you don't need to say hello back, but I'm owning my space as a healer, as a person who's connected, and I want you to know that I see you, whether that may, because some people that's going to make them feel uncomfortable.
yeah,
I don't need a hello back.
that's so good. Well, that's a good segue because I want to talk about your confidence journey.
Mm.
I'd love to have you share when you felt like you really, if there was a moment, or
Yes.
if it was just general, but where do you feel like you stepped into your confidence?
So it is a complicated answer because I did grow up in a small town, and the benefit, and I had positive experiences. I felt very seen. And as a result, I had a lot of confidence. I was very successful academically, athletically. I played college basketball, and I owned that. And I got a lot of accolades. So in the outside world, I was this confident human who could just, who took up space and who won awards and who was very performance based.
Mm.
But inside, I was suicidal. Inside, I was depressed. Inside did not match. I had this dream where this false self, like I was like a storefront. Every person I interacted with, I could quickly change the storefront. And, but my true self was hidden back in a closet.
Oh
And
my gosh.
yeah. And it wasn't until I went to therapy and felt delighted in and felt seen and worked through my own like really harsh judge and
Wow.
learned how to be, that then my confidence became congruent with the outside.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and now what I would say is I have the best friends in the world, and I know they cheer me on not for what I produce, not for the outcome, but
Mhm,
for trying things out.
mhm.
And so I know even if I fall flat on my face, I'm still loved. And I carry around in my heart warmth and goodness from so many people. I've been so blessed to be seen by lots of people. And I feel like that's, yeah, for me, it was decreasing the harsh judge, increasing the support, and really dealing with my depression and mental challenges.
And would you say, because I know that there's probably a lot of people that can relate to that, the how you shifted, can you share more about that? You mentioned therapy, and
Mhm.
can you share, like, I'm assuming this was not an overnight thing. So could you
No.
talk about
Eh,
a little bit about the process for anybody that might be feeling really overwhelmed right now?
yes. Well, let me just say it did not happen overnight. So it's not going to go away overnight. We all have different levels of chemical depression. We all come into this world with a genetic, imprint, whether that's good, you don't have any in your family, or it's challenging because you might. And I just encourage you to know that because genetics are real.
Mm,
However, with that said, you aren't just your genetics. We have an environment and we can find support. So for me, it was years of decreasing that harsh judge. I
mhm.
mean, I was very performance based. I had a well-oiled internal judge, and I literally had to start challenging the voice in my head. And initially, I thought if I don't have this harsh judge, I'm not going to meet the standards. In fact, if you would have told me in my 20s that I needed to decrease my harsh judge, I would be like, oh, you just can't meet up to my standards. Right? I was so arrogant about this need, but
That's
it kept out
hilarious.
all the good. I was only as
Wow.
good as my last success.
Ugh.
I was only as good as my last success.
Boy, I can definitely relate to that. So I'm laughing. I have to share this example
Yeah,
because I
please share,
remember
please
when you
share.
talked about, and by the way, for anybody listening, that is my cat in the background and he really wants to go outside, but we're gonna stay focused here. It's not a baby that I'm unattending. Every once in a while somebody thinks that. Um, so I can remember vividly because I had a really perfectionist mom and a critical father. So it was all about, just like you're saying, the performance. And I so love that you brought up the part about the inside not being congruent with the outside, and
Yes.
definitely can relate to that. And I remember one time where, I had this list of all the things I wanted in a man. And
Yeah.
of course, it was a huge list. And I remember thinking, I just, why does anybody think that I can't get that? Like I was so dead set on this list. And I remember when I had been dating, now Chris is my now husband. He's
Yes.
had so much patience, but I remember thinking maybe he'll rise to the challenge because there's still some things that he's not on this list. And it was when we were on a break or something, the whole like, are we on a break? Are we together? And I remember reading him the list and he paused and said, well, I hope that you and Jesus are happy together.
What a great response.
You know, I remember thinking, "What?" I love that you use the word arrogant because I wouldn't have thought of that at that. I just felt like, well, this is what but it's really true. It was this expectation. And then I laugh and I think about myself and all the flaws that I have. Why would I expect that this person is going to be perfect? And in fact, it was your husband that challenged me on something once during one of our therapy sessions where I
I love it.
saying, I want a man that's really connected with God. He's going to be the spiritual leader of our home. And, blah, 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 talking about all this, like connected with God. I remember Dennis saying to me, so how connected are you with God? Like, this is not about me. This is about him.
I love just cuts right
I
there.
know it's just
Right
right
there.
there. So, how about thinking? I would love to know what advice you would. Well, no, I want to know the best advice you've ever been given.
Mm. Okay, the best advice I have ever been given came in the form of a statement.
Ooh, okay, I'm ready.
You don't believe that you're enough when you just show up.
Ooh, say that one more time.
You don't believe that you're enough when you just show up as you are.
Okay, I'm taking that in now. That's good. Wow. Can you
Yeah.
share how that impacted you? That's really good.
Well, It was from I consult with an analyst as a like she's a consultant, I guess, in helping me deepen my work with my clients with, connecting. And I didn't know this, but I was very anxious. As a I mean, I had been practicing for decades by then when I
Wow.
hired her,
Yeah.
and she was like, "You're kind of only as good as your last good session." Like
Really humbling.
yeah. And she was like, "You really struggle to just have faith that however you show up is going to be enough. I mean, you have years of experience, you've done your own work, and this isn't about getting it right. It's about being able to show it in the space as you are and put aside whatever standards, values, evaluation that's going on." And so for me, I did not realize the pressure that I was putting on myself. I thought I was just trying to be a good therapist,
Right.
you know, and just do the best that I could. And so I wanted input and accountability. And where our work really took off was you're good enough right now. This is about me supporting you, finding your style, finding your way. This isn't about getting better. This is about having you live more into yourself. And
Wow.
it just was so relieving, and over time we were able to put that judge away. And I didn't even realize that I had the judge in this context. I was confident. I thought I was confident in my ability, but she was picking up the ways that I was coming to her, as in like, help me, help me. Um, so it was very, very powerful.
Wow. That is that is amazing. And I love that you use the word relieved because I think
Mhm.
about how many of us are trying to be someone that we're not, or we're trying to please, or even if we've done
Right.
a lot of work on ourselves, there's might be that little part of us that says, I need to be this way in this situation, or "Oh, I can't really say that. Nope, I better hold back." And then all of a sudden,
Yes,
we're a different version of ourselves that isn't feeling like we can really be who we are. And then we're not serving anybody. I mean, to the
exactly.
maximum capacity, really. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love how you state it. Like it can be in just a moment. You've done all this work, but you're suddenly find yourself feeling vulnerable. And it may not even make any logical sense, but you suddenly notice, wow, I'm really holding back right now.
Mm.
And it's it's like the state of mind. It can happen very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and I think I hope that's also a relief for people listening, that for many people that are listening to my podcast certainly are high achievers, and to
Yes.
think that it to not throw out, the 20 plus years that you've worked on yourself because of one moment or one time where you go, I thought I was over this.
I thought I was over this. Yes.
So,
Yes.
Kimber, could you tell us about, if you have an example that you'd be willing to share, or
Yeah.
something about a client situation where somebody actually had those exact words, since that's a theme? I thought I was over this. Is there any example
Mhm.
that you think would
Mhm.
be helpful?
Well, I will say that there are a lot of my clients who have said that. and and it really is where you go back to your own to the coping strategies, and I will say the pandemic.
Mm,
I mean, this collectively and individually has brought out our old nervous systems
hmm.
because there's so much unfamiliarity. I mean, autopilot is not bad. We know I mean, it has goodness to it. We don't have to think about it. And the pandemic has thrown all of our autopilots out. And
Hmm.
so we all deal with stress that was before not with us.
Hmm.
And so many, many people had symptoms and had difficulties come up. For myself, starting my podcast. To be fair, I started my podcast and met with a literary agent the same week. So I think they're kind of both tied together. But
Yes.
I
Oh,
am a fantastic sleeper. I have worked on my sleep, and this is in my podcast because I'm doing the whole first season on sleep because
oh,
of
that's so great.
my own, like, where did this come from? Because I have had trouble sleeping
Oh,
since
no.
starting, and so the thought for me is I thought I was over this. I used to not sleep well at all. Again, when you're a high achiever, you got so many things. Adrenaline is your friend, but wow, it is right back in the driver's seat, and it's not necessarily because I don't feel like I can do it. It's really about navigating the unfamiliarity and making decisions.
Mm,
Some of the decisions I have to make about my book, my manuscript, they're just they're new, they're unfamiliar, and there's no right answer.
mm,
And so really trying to sit with me inside. Do I want to go the marketing route that everyone says you need to go, or is there another way? And that just takes time to discern.
mhm, mhm.
So,
That's a really good, oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say, so in the in between time, my sleep is suffering.
Oh, no. Uh, well, I I have so many questions. That's so good. What I want to do though, I want to make sure that we cover a couple of things before we wrap up. I would love to know, well, first of all, I need to acknowledge what you just said because I think it's so interesting that you had no problem sleeping until recently, and
Mhm.
then things shifted. And I hope that's a comfort to people listening to know that we
Mm.
have these patterns and sometimes a life event or something happens and it totally shifts us.
Exactly. That's
Yeah,
right. And it
it's
doesn't
good.
mean there's something wrong with me.
Yeah, that's, thank you for saying that. I was like, there's something more. Yes, that's what thank you. That's what needed to be said.
Yeah.
So we can have grace on our situations. I'd love to have you think about a time where you didn't speak up, but you wish that you had.
Yeah. I A time for me was when I didn't speak up for a promotion. My company had created a new job, and I didn't say that I wanted that job. I I wanted to be invited.
Uh-huh.
My young self was like,
Yes.
"Well, I should be asked."
Right, of course,
I
because
mean,
you work hard, right?
I work hard. Clearly, they can see I would be great for this spot. And I did not name it as I was insecure. It felt too vulnerable to go get invited. Instead, I kind of made it about, well, I'm not being seen, and that, there must be something, I should find another job. I kind of like took it personally rather than took, I think, an adult route, a confident adult route, which would have been, hey, I would love this promotion. What do you think about it? Even if I would have received a no, I could have gotten valuable feedback.
Yes, yes. Boy, I'm connecting with that story for sure.
Yeah.
So interesting. Well, I'm remembering when, is there anything you wanted to more you wanted to share
No,
on that?
no,
Because
I'd
I'm
love to
I'm
hear
thinking
it.
about when I was in a corporate role and I was asked to be on the leadership team and I was so excited and president of the company and I'm thinking, oh, this is so great. And everybody else in there was director or above and I was a senior manager.
Okay.
And I remember saying to her very passively, so, hey, I know everybody else is director or above. Is that something that we're going to look at? You know,
Right.
she was completely restructuring the company and all this thing. So she didn't, she just said, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, we'll have to look at all of that. Well,
Mhm.
then later I brought it up to the COO thinking, oh, well, I'll go to the source who, he was not very helpful. Well, there's a lot of things that are involved in titles. I mean, it was just like, oh, just all these,
Yes.
like lame answers. But anyhow, but I'm not blaming them. I'm
Right,
blaming
but
myself because when then I got to my review, I expected I was going to have a promotion.
yes.
And she didn't say anything. And and she said, you look disappointed, what's going on? And I said, well, I thought that I thought I'd be promoted. We talked about this. She looked so clueless. Like she didn't even remember that was a
Oh my
fleeting
goodness.
conversation. And she said, oh my gosh. And then I had to take that and go, And I actually said to her after a few days had passed, when I really thought about it,
Yeah.
I said, you know what I would have done differently? Similar to what you said, Kimber. I would have said, come to you and said, I want to be a director. What is it going to take for me to get there? What's getting in my way? And I mean, how much clearer would that have been?
Yes. So relieving.
Yeah.
So relieving.
Yeah. And then
Yep.
you're not wondering, oh, I hope they pick me. Will they notice me? And there's so
Yeah.
much of this stuff that we just keep inside. So
Exactly. And it's like that internal chatter. Can you imagine what a gift for you and for me? I spent months kind of ruminating about this. What a
yes,
relief it would have been to go first.
I know. And we have the power to do that. That's the other thing that kills me.
Yes.
We just have to do it. Well, is there anything, Kimber, that I haven't asked you yet that you would like to share?
Um, I think we've kind of hinted at these things. I just want the listeners, our audience listening to know it's a journey and confidence is multifaceted, complex, and just have fun with it. Just because you don't speak up doesn't mean that you don't have confidence. It just is a signal that something interfered with it in that moment.
Oh, that's so good. That's a beautiful, beautiful sentiment right there, because we can be so hard on ourselves
Yes.
and think something's wrong with us, or, oh, I can't believe I did it again, or I thought I was over this.
Yes.
We keep coming back to that.
Yes. It's
And
so true. So
yeah,
true.
so
The
that's
other thing I would say is, and I know you are a big fan of this, you got to get a support team.
yes,
If you
sure.
want to do something unfamiliar and take a risk, you need cheerleaders, you need feedback done in love. I mean, you need a team.
Yes,
So
100%.
get one.
Yes,
However you can, get
exactly,
one.
exactly. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. Well, it's been so great to connect with you in this way, Kimber. Really excited for you and your podcast and all that you're doing to serve the world. What
Thank thank you,
Sorry for the
Karen.
background noise. More cats.
Yeah, the cats.
So how can we reach you?
Well, before we go to me, I just want to say I just want to give you a shout out.
Oh,
I
thank you.
just love how you show up in the world. You are somebody who I experience as just having internalized that there's enough. There's enough success, there's enough room at the table, there's enough love to go around, and your being is just so inviting for others to take up space, and I'm just honored to be a part of your podcast and to be with you. So thank
Oh,
you.
Kimber, that means so much. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you so much. I really
you're
appreciate it.
you're welcome. You're
Well,
welcome.
let's talk about, where we can.
Yeah, so okay, so people can find me at drkimber.net. My podcast is called I Thought I Was Over This, and I have a website for that. You can get to it through my main website, but I also have a separate um because I'm that way. I,
I
I,
love it.
and yeah, I thought I was over this is on every major platform.
Fabulous. That's great.
So
And we'll have all the links, of course, that are in the show notes. So can't
great.
wait to continue to hear how things are going for you,
Thank you, Karen. It's been
Kimber.
great to be with you.
And that's a wrap of another episode of Ignite Your Confidence. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps other people find the podcast faster, and it certainly helps me. If you're interested in more tips and tools around confidence, please join me over in my Facebook group called Ignite Your Confidence with Karen Laus. Remember, you too can stand out with unshakable confidence.